I just want to give you a few critical things that I learned in the first 5 years of my career. And this is important because it sets you up to a great path of success as you move throughout your career, either at one organization or as you move through organizations. The first thing is right when you start your career, day one, if you haven't already done this during the interview process, find out what the key success factors are for the role that you are in. So, for example, I was starting in financial services. When you are a first-year associate, the thing that is most important are your analytical skills. Second, your quantitative skills. Third, your attention to detail. And then there are things like how well do you get along with the team, or you good at building relationships. But those three things were critical key success factors. So once you figure out what those are, let's say you're in marketing, it may be your writing skills. It may be your ability to demonstrate how creative you are, what an out-of-the-box thinker you are. But whatever the key success factors are for that seat, you find out what they are and try to master them in your first 90 days. Now, clearly, there are going to be other things that you need to learn. But in my case, as a first-year associate, I should have been focusing on what are the key models that we use. Do I know how to build a financial model complete with the forecast? Do I know how to set it up so that I can easily calculate a discounted cash flow analysis? If you're in marketing, you might want to think about how do you write through your ideas or write down your ideas and be able to communicate them. You might want to be able to practice and say, here's my idea, here's why, here's how I think it's going to touch the consumer. Now, how do you know what to say and how to say it? In your first couple of weeks, as you're sitting in meetings, you should be observing how people are speaking to each other, what language they are using, what words should they use to describe certain things. All of those are things that will be important and that I will consider key success factors. The second thing is that you should put yourself on a timeline around how fast you're going to learn some of those things. I just said, do your best to master them in the first 90 days. But you may be involved in an engineering program or operations, and it might take a full 4 or 5 months for you to really be exposed to those things that are considered key success factors. But put yourself on a timeline of learning those things, because trust me, if you don't, you will look back over the first year and you will realize there are real gaps around the things that you are supposed to know to be successful in that role. And oh, by the way, you don't have to try to figure it out. You can always ask someone, whoever is your direct boss or your key stakeholders, talk to them and say, hey, what does success look like in this seat? What are the 3 things that I must master in order for you all to consider I'm pretty good at what I'm doing? So don't try to figure it out. Ask the question. And if you get an unsatisfactory answer from one person, ask somebody else until you get a pretty good sense that there's some common things that people say that are important for the seat that you're in. The third thing I'm going to tell you to do is once you think you have learned something, now explain it to somebody else. If you can't explain it, you don't really know it. So you ought to keep going until you can talk to someone who knows nothing about what you're doing, and you be able to break it down so that they understand. Now you know it. Now you can master it. The fourth thing I'm going to tell you to do is be very intentional about networking with people. It's easy to put your head down and work. But when you look up after your first year, after your first 18 months, after your first 2 years, and you don't know who's who within the organization, you are now behind the 8 ball. You are compromising your success. And if it is not natural to you to network, as it was not for me, I leveraged my strength, and my strength is I'm an executor. If it's on my list, I'm going to take it off. So I would literally put on the list, go by so-and-so's office and shoot the breeze. Go have coffee with so-and-so. Ask these 2 questions. Make sure that you're having lunch with this one once a month. I would literally put it on the list and put it on the calendar so I could look back after the first 30 days and say, oh, I've touched 6 people in my organization. After the first 60 days, oh, I know the top 10 people who are in my organization, the CEO, the CFO, the COO. I may not have interacted with them, but I know who they are. I know their names. One of the things that I like to do, even to this day, is I play the what if game with myself at work. I used to say when I was a young associate, suppose I'm in the elevator and the CEO gets on the next floor, and he said, "Hey, how are you?" What am I going to say? Of course, I can say I'm fine. I can also say my name is CarlaHarris and I work in XXX. But what are you going to say? Play the conversation out to yourself so that when it happens, because it's going to happen, when it happens, you're ready. You have a narrative. If someone says, "How do you like your role?" What are you going to say? How are you going to sound productive and constructive? And the fifth thing I'm going to tell you is in those early days, understand how people move. Talk to people. Is it 2 years generally before you get the next look at a promotion? Is it 3 years? What's the title? So that you know what you're playing for. Because I believe that when you know what you're playing for, it keeps you motivated and inspired to deliver excellence every day because you know what you're playing for. Go get them.